Hello, my fellow pin enthusiasts. So I know it's been a while since I've done a video. As of the time I'm recording this one, it's been about roughly 58 days since I uploaded my last video, which is about the Wing Sung 601A with the gold cap. And I promise I'm going to continue to upload videos. And I think I'm at a point right now where I can probably get back into the swing of uploading a little bit more video content, especially the pin news videos, which I rather enjoy doing. Now the pin that you see in front of you, the one that we're going to talk about today, is the Delike Resin or New Moon fountain pen. Now the first thing that may come to mind is that this pen looks somewhat similar, has some similar design characteristics to the Sailor Pro Gear. Now I do have a Pro Gear, and you know, again, it does have some similar design characteristics, kind of a dual fold styled pen with the flat bottoms, you know, this big cap band, and the clip has some similarities, but in essence, two very different pens. But I think that they've used some of those design characteristics, and they've done a good job with it. Now, this is the first New Moon that I've owned. I know there's been other New Moons that have been produced. I don't know, you know, as to far as how many at this point, different variations of that. But this one really kind of caught my eye. Now, taking a look at the pen a little bit closer, it's hard on here. I have LED lighting, but really it doesn't do this material justice. It's a there's just a lot of color and depth with this resin, and I personally think it's very attractive. Now this pen costs me about $21, and I've seen it on eBay, Etsy for anywhere between $20 to $23, depending upon which nib option you may get and things of that nature. Now, of course, there are other colors of these pens. If you're not really interested in this resin specifically, there are other colors available. I have talked about them in previous pen news videos, but if you really just honestly put in Delike Resin fountain pen, and whether you do a Google search or just simply go on eBay, a lot of those colors will pop up. They have a red one, they have a blue one. I think they may even have some additional colors as well. Now, kind of starting at the top of the pen, I like the fact that there's really no, there's no jewel finial or anything at the top. It's really just the material, and I think it looks nice. Now we'll notice that, we've got our cap band right here, and then again, we have our clip. Clip is, it's not too stiff, somewhat springy. It goes in and out of a shirt pocket perfectly fine. Now it does have kind of like a raised edge right here, and you can see that through the video. Somewhat similar to the Sailor Pro Gear. And then we see our wide cap band here. So we have Delike on this side, and then you flip it around and it does have the New Moon branding on the back. So it's a really nice, obviously, designator to let you know this is a New Moon fountain pen. Now some of the auctions that you'll see don't always have this designated as a New Moon. Sometimes it just literally says Delike Resin fountain pen, but essentially this is a New Moon line. Now working our way down the pen, of course we have that step down here, and then we see our barrel and see some more of that just beautiful material. You can see it definitely has some chatoyance to it. It's very kind of got some iridescent qualities as far as it just kind of sparkles. This looks really cool in sunlight as well. So if you're using it outside, it looks really nice. Or if you have your desk is by your window. And then of course, again, not to continue to beat a dead horse, but we've got our band back here at the end of the barrel. Again, somewhat similar to the Sailor Pro Gear. Back in there, no jewel, just flat there. And to me, it looks nice. Now you can see some transparent qualities to the pen. You can actually see those threads in there from the cap / barrel. So definitely has some transparent qualities to this fountain pen as well. Now as far as uncapping, of course, it's a twist off cap. And I haven't counted the turns yet. So there's one full turn. We're at a half. There's two. It's three, so just over 3 turns. So, you know, quite a bit to uncap it. I don't really notice it, I guess, because I'm uncapping so rapidly generally when I'm writing, so I don't notice it as much. Now, one of the things that I really like, one of the things that I'm not a big fan of pens that have metal sections. I own a couple, and I don't find myself ever using them. They generally stay in the drawer and don't ever really get picked up. But you'll notice this one has a, the section is the same material as the rest of the pen. Now, why do I even mention that? Well, some of the other New Moon lines, that's some of the thing that kind of deterred me from purchasing one of those prior. They have more of a metal section. And generally I just don't, I've tried those pens and I just don't enjoy the writing experience. So I like the fact that this one has the style section that it does. You know, it's not a concave section, which may not, you know, if you're somebody that really likes something to really grip, you may not like this section as much. The threads to me are just a tad sharp. I don't find them uncomfortable. I generally do hold the pen about right here. It doesn't bother me whatsoever, but I could see it maybe bothering somebody. And then there is a slight step down, but the step down is machined very well. I don't notice it whatsoever. I would say if you hold your pen up higher, it could maybe, it doesn't bother me, but I could see it maybe bothering somebody. I do feel like these threads they're machined well, but they're just a little bit on the sharper side. Of course, you see we've got another metal band here, and then again down here. I do like the fact that it does have a slight flare out at the end, so it kind of lets you know that you're there at the end. And then how it fits in my hand, to me, I generally write with this pen posted, but you can, if you're taking quick notes, you can definitely write with this pen unposted, unless you just have abnormally large hands. And then of course, just so you can see it posted, it doesn't post very deeply, but it does post securely. It's not going anywhere, and it does make the pen much longer. So again, if you have very large hands, definitely will make for a nice writing experience if you use this pen posted. It doesn't wobble around or anything. It's one of the nice design characteristics with this style of barrel and cap. Now, as far as the filling mechanism, of course, this is going to be a cartridge converter fountain pen, and yes, you will get a converter with it. You've got your metal sleeve here, so and I mean really that's it there. So it's this cartridge converter, we've all seen them. Definitely wouldn't be a pen that I would probably recommend eyedropping, of course. Now, as far as nib goes, now I have here a extra fine actually. Now you can get this in a fine, but I will say if you buy one of these pens and you've never used the Delike nib, get their bent nib like this one here. It's just a great nib. Yes, it's labeled. I'm going to double check that I did order an extra fine. So it's labeled as an extra fine, but it's a bent nib. Doesn't to me write like an extra fine. It's very, very smooth. I haven't had a Delike nib that I've used that I've disliked. Now, of course, this is basically about a number 5 nib. I would love to see them have a number 6 nib with this upturn. That would be amazing. But we've got a number 5 nib here. And that's one thing. I mean, I think this pen would look a lot nicer with a larger nib. That's just my opinion. And then of course on the back we've got that stamped feed, so just that plastic feed, but it does a good job. So I don't have any issues or complaints as far as that goes. Now up next we will do of course our usual sizing comparisons with some other fountain pens to really get an idea of how this pen stacks up, and then I'll talk a little bit about I'll give you guys some measurements on the pen as well. See you in a moment. All right, so we are back with some sizing comparisons, and I tried to pop in 2 pens for sizing comparisons that I know a lot of you may own. It's a couple of people have mentioned that previously in comments that, hey, you know, be nice, because generally I do a lot of size comparisons with other Chinese fountain pens, but if you're new and maybe you haven't really gotten into the Chinese fountain pen world, there's a good chance you may own a TWSBI Eco or a Pilot Metropolitan, because you can get a Metropolitan at like an Office Depot or a Walmart, just about anywhere. So starting from the bottom working up, we've got, of course, our Delike New Moon. We've got a Sailor Pro Gear and a TWSBI Eco and a Pilot Metropolitan. Now you'll notice the Delike New Moon, it does hold its own overall and an overall length. It's definitely not a large pen by any means, but it's not a super small pen either. Now the Pro Gear is actually shorter in overall stature, but it is somewhat girthier. And then our Eco here is really the largest pen overall as far as length and girth as far as that goes. And then we have our Pilot Metropolitan and that kind of cigar shaped. And it definitely is pretty similar to the Delike New Moon. So as far as overall length, the New Moon may be a little bit girthier in some aspects, but they're about the same in overall length. So just something to call out there. Now next, I will take off the caps and we'll kind of look at the sections, the nibs, and also compare these pens in their uncapped form. Okay, so here now we see all 4 pens uncapped, and the sections, to me, they all take on a different overall aspect. Now we do see some similarities in nibs as far as between the Delike, the TWSBI, and the Pilot, just as I think as overall sizing. Now, of course, the Sailor Pro Gear is definitely the one that stands out in this aspect from a nib perspective, of course, with that beautiful 21 karat gold nib. So that definitely, of course, stands out. Now, let's get kind of I like actually just picking this up and getting it closer to the camera versus zooming in. But here we can see those sections a little bit closer. And again, you know, the Delike and the Sailor, as far as I think the overall section design is similar. Now you'll notice sizing is of course going to be different. The Sailor is still going to be smaller in overall length. And to me, this is where I don't think that the overall girth of the pens is really a big difference. So I think they're about the same. And the overall design is similar. The Sailor section is a little bit skinnier and it does taper down more and flare out. I will say for overall writing experience, I actually like the Delike better just from the way it feels in my hand. Now that's just my personal preference. Maybe totally different for the next person. Then we have our TWSBI Eco over here. It's kind of a different take on a section. It has this interesting flare out that kind of, I think the idea behind it is how your fingers fit into that flare out. And it's somewhat of not a concave section, but it definitely tapers down to the end. And then the Pilot Metropolitan, probably my least favorite section out of these 4 pens. I just don't find this to be as enjoyable of a writing experience with that pen. And then again, just the nibs. You know, the Delike is as nice of a writer as the nib is. It doesn't really do a lot aesthetically, but at the end of the day, a pen is a tool. So I think the nib performs perfectly fine, but I mean, from an aesthetic viewpoint, it's probably the least nicest nib. I mean, you could argue the Pilot nib is not extremely aesthetically pleasing. However, I would say the Delike nib probably, for me at least, is just kind of there. But that kind of gives you an idea, again, just a little bit of a comparison. I will take a quick look at these pens in their posted form for those of you that really have to write with your pens posted, just to get an idea of overall sizing. All right, so here we see all 4 pens posted now. And, you know, I will say that really all 3 of these pens, but especially the Sailor and the Delike, to me, they're very nice pens to write with in their posted forms. You know, I don't really use my TWSBI very much anymore, but you can probably tell the way that cap band is worn. This pen got a tremendous amount of use. I haven't inked it up in a while because I have so many other pens that I've used recently, but this pen was inked up and cleaned out and inked up and cleaned out for quite a long time. And so this one definitely has got a lot of uses. But these 2 pens are pretty solid as far as their posted form. Again, the Delike is a little bit longer. So if you're looking for a pen that's not, you know, has a little bit more length to it, I think that Delike definitely can fit that mold. The TWSBI is going to be the longest because of the way it posts. It doesn't post deeply, but it does have that rubber O-ring that makes it nice. And I don't want to sound like I always feel like I'm just talking bad about the Pilot Metropolitan. I think it has its place. It is a solid pen, but it's my least favorite to write with posted. This is one of my first fountain pens, and I think when you go from this to other pens, it just kind of changes your perception. When I got it, I love that pen. I'm not gonna lie, I did enjoy it. But then when I started using other pens and started having different writing experiences, Pipe Metropolitan just kind of took it started in the back seat and then it kind of went out the back door, and then it's not even really in any type of rotation anymore. In essence, that is the sizing comparison. Now I'm going to set these pins off to the side and we can get a look at some dimensions as well. First things first, I will do a little bit, kind of give you guys an idea of how much the pen weighs. It would help if I don't hit my tripod. All right, so this now, it is basically full with ink. So bear in mind, this is with a full fill on the converter. So we're right at 23 grams, literally right on the dot. So, so about 23 grams. I wouldn't say, so it's not an extremely heavy pen, but definitely not a light pen either. Now we can also get a look at what some dimensions of this pen would actually be. So overall length, we're sitting at about a little over 133 millimeters, 133.3 to be exact. Now when we uncap this pen, we are sitting at a 120.7, so about 120.5 millimeters uncapped, and then in its posted form. And normally I post this up on the screen. I thought I'd do it a little bit different. I did this in my last review. If you guys don't like it this way, just let me know. So we're sitting at about 154.3 millimeters posted. That's actually not bad. That's a pretty decent size. You know, I will say that even though the pen is of a decent length, it doesn't feel large. Definitely doesn't, you know, and maybe it's just because I have so many pens now that I use that are, I don't want to say oversized, but on the larger side. It does feel a little bit smaller, but I actually don't mind that, especially when I'm carrying this in a pocket or a shirt pocket by any chance, or if I just need a pen that I can, you know, take for quick notes. But really, in essence, that's the pen. So up next, we will do a writing sample, and then I'll finish up and tell you my exact thoughts and opinions, and if whether or not you should consider buying this pen at the end. All right, so we are back, and before I get started with the writing sample, this is the ink that is in the pen, Monteverde Amethyst ink. Nice purple ink. So I don't know why, I have a thing, like I really enjoy purple ink. I don't know why, but definitely a nice ink. So really probably what most of you are waiting for is how does the pen write? So let's get it uncapped. So again, this is the Delike New Moon. And I'll say New Moon Resin, because generally what you'll see it labeled as in one order or the other. It'll say Delike Resin New Moon or Delike New Moon Resin, generally is what you're going to see. Now this pen, again, it's available. I've seen it on Etsy. It's available on eBay, and I'm sure it's available on other sites as well. So those are, of course, those are usually my two main sites that I go to. There are other sites I buy pens off of. Those are my two main. And generally, I would say between $20 and $23. And I think I paid about, it was a little under $22. And of course, free shipping per usual. And I did get this pen off of eBay. I'll do an actual writing sample. You know, the nib is smooth. You know, it's not overly wet, like it's not an overly wet writer, but it's definitely, it lays down a decent amount of ink. Do a little bit of a wetness test here. So not bad. And I would say this Montverde ink is a little bit, it's a little bit on the drier side. And you know, this is not a nib you're going to get really any line variation out of, so don't expect anything like that, of course. It is just a basic steel nib. Again, somewhat smooth. I think it definitely, you know, does give you a hint of feedback, but in a good way. And it doesn't feel like an extra fine nib. Again, it doesn't feel like that because of that upturn. That makes it really, really nice. Kind of turn the nib a little bit. Now, and that's kind of something, you know, it's a little bit sensitive to writing angle. I do notice sometimes with these nibs, a little bit sensitive to that, but I don't mind that whatsoever. As far as reverse writing, it can definitely happen. You've got to be careful on exactly how you hold it because, again, it is an upturned nib, but you can do it. It's like an extra fine though right now. But as you can tell, it continues to lay down ink. The cross strokes are a little bit kind of grind on the paper. So definitely something that I would say to kind of understand. But you can kind of see it, you know, fast writing definitely keeps up. I don't have any complaints there. Feed does its job. And I mean, I think the fact that it's able to keep up really well with this ink, as much as I like the ink color, I don't think it's, you know, definitely not the wettest ink out there. But in essence, that is a pen. So I rather like this pen. It is a great pen. And I would definitely recommend this pen. I'm not going to do any type of ratings on the pen. So what are the things that I really, really like about it? Well, number one, the material to me is gorgeous. I think it's a very attractive material. It's got, again, a lot of color and depth. I think you can put almost whatever color ink you want in there, in my opinion. You can do a green ink, you can do a blue ink, you can do a black ink, you can do a brown ink, or in my case, a purple ink. You can just buy any color you want. So if you're one of those people that feels like you always have to match your ink to the color of your pen, well, hey, get a pen like this. You can do whatever color ink you want just about. I think the overall size of the pen I really enjoy. As far as build quality, it's great. I don't have any complaints whatsoever. And then at the end of the day, the pen has to perform. It has to write. It has to do its intended purpose because it is a tool. And it writes, to me, flawlessly. I don't have any complaints as far as the writing experience. And generally, that's what I would say about most Delike nibs, is they're good writers, or Delike pens in general, for the most part. They're solid writers. So I would definitely recommend this pen for about $20 or just a little bit over. I think it's worth it. If you're not a big fan of this color, there are, again, other colors available. So definitely check those out. Again, Etsy, eBay, AliExpress. I know I've seen it on there, as well as one I didn't mention earlier that I buy fountain pens from quite often. So like I said, guys, I will try and get up some more videos shortly. I do have some other pens to review. I actually need to do a couple of follow-up reviews on a couple of pens, one of them being a Pen BBS pen that I wanted to kind of discuss. So I will hopefully get those up over the next couple weeks. But until next time, everyone, please take care. I hope all of you have had a wonderful holidays, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.